Tom Luginbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN. He joins us on the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by KCB Residential Roofing. KCB Residential Roofing. Call Ron Lloyd today, 601-842-6779. And, of course, they can do residential roofing, and they have, all over the state of Mississippi. KCB Residential Roofing. If you need a new roof or something replaced. We've had storms coming through and everything else. So KCB Roofing. Tom Luginbill joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Lugs, good morning. We had an absolute dogfight in Baton Rouge on Saturday night. You talked about Garrett Nussmeier throughout the offseason, that you felt like he was going to be a really good player, bided his time, waited for his moment. And yep. Brian Kelly in the postgame said it was a growth game for Nussmeier. A lot went wrong on Saturday, but he hung in there and converted 2 fourth downs on that last drive to tie it up. What did you see, Tom Luginbill?
Yeah, I thought he was an absolute gamer. I remember the postgame press conference in the opener against USC, and Brian Kelly kind of called him out. He said, their quarterback made plays at the time they needed him to, and ours didn't. Well, on Saturday night, yours did. And I thought it was a gutsy performance. A lot of those throws were not easy throws to make. And that's a big moment, huge game. You're at home. You're at night in Baton Rouge. I mean, you've got an opportunity to have a season-defining, potentially season-changing performance late in that game, and he gave it to him.
He was unbelievable late. Lugs, you've been in so many stadiums. You've watched so many games. Ole Miss played really well in spots throughout the evening. They got them 17-7 in the first half. Yeah. And you get the sense that they could pull away at any time. And they allow LSU to kick 2 field goals going into half, and it's 17-13. And I've been down there many a nights and watched games since I was a kid. My takeaway is teams like LSU, Bama, and Georgia, you have to put them away when you can, Luke.
Well, absolutely. There's no question, because you may not have that many opportunities. And if you're in a contest like that and you have the opportunity to put your foot on their throat and close it out, it's just, and especially now, like with what's happening and what is going to unfold over the next 3 to 5 weeks in college football as it relates to the college football playoff. Like, Bo, I mean, when you think about it, we're getting to elimination games. Like Tennessee, Alabama, that's a potential elimination game. When you look at the college football playoff, not saying it is, definitively, but these are the types of contests. And if you get somebody in a game like that and you get them down, you've got to close the deal. And that's a big deal, man.
So Ole Miss, their fans are melting down. They're 1-2 in conference play. They felt like this was the most talented roster that they had ever put together. Talk that they had put close to $15 million into the roster. This is still a new age. I think you were just alluding to it, that we're still going to have to go through a couple of cycles, Luke, to actually figure out the who, what, where, and why with the portal and roster balance and all that. But how important is this off week for Lane Kiffin, Pete Golding, and crew to keep these guys locked in, considering they thought and other people thought that this could be a, top 5, top 6, top 7 team during the offseason?
Well, that's the thing. And you mentioned the transfer portal part of it, because now, and Ohio State just entered this conversation too with their loss to Oregon, is everything about how this team was put together through the open market, through high school recruiting, but most notably because of the portal, was done to instantly create a college football playoff caliber team, right? And so then when things don't start going that way, and I've said this from the word go, and this could be any number of teams, so I'm not making this exclusive about Ole Miss, and I'm not saying this is happening with Ole Miss. But the danger of the portal and the danger of transient rosters is when things don't go well, what is the individual player's motivation, allegiance, and loyalty to? Is it to the team that rented him? Is it to themselves? Is it to NIL? Or is it to the team? And those are hard questions to ask, and I know people don't like having those types of discussions, but this is what we've entered into transactional college football. And in doing so, there's a downside to that. So if you look at, let's just take Florida State, for example. No, I'm not comparing Florida State to Ole Miss, but what I'm saying is when you hit on the right guys in the transfer portal and you quickly turn the thing around and find yourself 13-0, okay? You look at that team last year at Florida State, and then all of those guys go out the door at the same time. So think about those transfers. Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, Trey Benson, Jaheim Bell. I could go on and on and on. All of those guys were brought into Florida State, helped quickly turn the thing around, turned it into an ACC championship caliber type football team, and they all went out the door. Now you got to go try and replace those guys. Well, what if you replace them with the wrong guys? And how quickly that thing can go downhill. And so it's so hard to predict what players are going to do if there's an individual component to all of this when it comes to me versus we. And I think that's very real in the era of college football we have right now.
Yeah. So they're 1-2. If they win out, they could make it. If they lose one more time, it's definitely done. The committee loves top 25 wins. That's what they've told us. They love top 25 wins. Love it. That drives pretty much the whole thing. When I look at their schedule, I look at Oklahoma, I think 7-5, best case scenario, Luke's. Mm-hmm. I think Arkansas is a good story. I don't think they'll be in the top 25. Georgia will be. Florida will not be. Mississippi State will not be. So as I look down the stretch here, they have an opportunity. Ole Miss has an opportunity for one top 25 win, which tells me there's no wiggle room. They have to get it, Luke's.
Yeah, that's the thing. The margin of error now for everybody is razor thin, because we're sitting here talking about Ole Miss and the limited opportunities that are left, and the fact that you really can't lose. And in the same conversation, in the same breath, as it relates to the college football playoff, we're talking about a team like Iowa State, who's ranked 11th in the country. Who would have thought Iowa State would be 11th in the country, right? Or even, they might even moved up. That might have been yesterday. Let me see real quick. They might have moved up. Yeah. They're 9.
Good grief.
Iowa State is number 9. So we're sitting here having conversations. Let's think about this. BYU's undefeated, sitting there at 13. Notre Dame's 5-1, and the rest of their schedule,
it's cupcakes,
right now,
man.
What's that?
It's cupcakes.
You're looking at 2 service academies that are currently undefeated as being the best 2 teams remaining on their schedule. Okay. You have Tennessee, who could be in an elimination contest this week versus Alabama, and then maybe further down the road versus a team like Georgia, right? Clemson's rolling right now. LSU's got everything in front of them. Alabama's got major questions. So the way this thing's unfolding, Ohio State just put themselves in jeopardy. And then Penn State stealing that game from SC last week. We're having conversations about SEC teams in the college football playoff. The problem is the margin of error in the SEC for those teams, when you consider who the other teams are in the discussion, is continuing to be razor thin. And I haven't even brought up on Indiana, right? How about Texas A&M? Texas A&M's a problem. They're sitting there at 14.
Yeah, they're going to get upset this weekend in Starkville.
You think? Hey, at least, by the way, they're scoring points.
Hey, Van Buren, who you know all about from being head of recruiting.
He's a scrapper, man.
I thought that kid played a hell of a second half and dropped some dimes for a true freshman in Sanford Stadium. That's not easy to do, Tom.
No. Yeah, no, I'm with you. They kept just kind of hanging in there and plugging away. So, yeah, I just think that this, all of the discussion too, Bo, that, pro and con, good and bad about the expansion of the college football playoff. What would it do to the regular season? All it's doing is enhancing the regular season, because it's not just about 4 teams anymore. It's about slots. It's about spots that everybody's trying to make. And so what you do in conference is unbelievable, but then you're having to worry about teams now that you never had to worry about before.
Yeah. So Texas is undefeated. Oregon's undefeated. Penn State's – I'm not buying Penn State. I'm really not buying Oregon. I think I'm buying Texas. Miami, Cristobal's living on the edge. How about this, Tom Luginbill? We don't have an elite team now. We got used to what Saban and Dabo and Kirby did, and imposing their will and dominating people and just shredding people. And I think going forward, because of the portal and because kids aren't going to sit at Georgia and Bama and LSU for the rest of college football, that is over. Having a 2011 Bama team or a 2018 Georgia or 2019 LSU, having those teams, Lugs, not that they're still not going to have the most talent, but they are not going to have as many dudes and as much depth going forward. Do you agree or disagree?
I do agree. I think Texas is fairly close to being an elite team. I really do. I think they're really good in all the right areas that you need to be really good in. And so I think they are kind of comparable to some of those Georgia and Alabama teams that you mentioned. But I could not agree with you more in terms of the thinning out of the depth, right? So, in years past, a guy that's running with the threes at Georgia that's a really good player, right? He's now starting for somebody because he's good enough to make them better. And those guys didn't used to be available on the open market. So all of these different players that you're seeing spread throughout college football that were formerly like, for example, Pittsburgh's a prime example. You take Eli Holstein and Desmond Reed. All right, so Desmond Reed comes through the transfer portal out of the FCS level. Eli Holstein was a highly touted quarterback, coming out of high school, went signed with Alabama, redshirted there last year, and now all of a sudden Pittsburgh's 6-0.
Yeah.
All right, so you're taking other really good players. SMU is another great example. They're 5-1. Almost every one of their front people on both sides of the ball had played and started games for Power 5 schools prior to arriving at SMU. Right? So you're taking that depth and then improving another team, which then makes that team more competitive, which leads to more potential losses and upsets.
That's a good way to frame it up. Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Saban teams, Dabo teams, Kirby Smart, 2019 LSU. Trying to think. Those are over as we know it. I don't see it happening again. Now, Luginbill, Lugs, the only way I see that happening is if a top 5 recruiter like Georgia, Bama, and LSU also decides to go a little bit heavier in the portal. Now, they're going to adjust. The big boys are going to adjust. And instead of taking 7 players, 5 to 7 players, they take 10 to 12 players. I think that's the only way that they possibly load the boat again, but I got to think that through. All right.
But like Nick Saban said, on game day in week 1 or 2, you can pay all the players you want, but if you pay the wrong ones, you're SOL.
No question. I mean, I've got Ole Miss fans saying, hey, look, the 2 Washington offensive linemen that we got just aren't that good. I mean, compared to, it sounded good. They were coming off a national championship appearance team. All right, I got to go. Do I have time to go? Diego Pavia.
Yeah.
Mr. Manziel Masoli. He continues to do it. He's limping all over the field, but he made like 6 Kentucky defenders miss, and they've got a top 13 defense. It really is unbelievable what we're witnessing from Vanderbilt and Pavia.
I've instituted a new rule from this day forward. Actually, it was from yesterday on my Sunday show. Until further notice, if you lose to Vanderbilt, you're no longer allowed to call it a bad loss.
I love that.
You can't call it a bad loss anymore. It's just a loss because Vanderbilt's a pretty good football team. And they're good in the areas that nobody expected them to be good in, and that's up front on both sides of the ball, running the football and stopping the run. And they don't beat themselves. I mean, Kentucky goes out there and has 12 penalties. And I think Vandy had 2 or 3. And then Vandy's 8 of 13 on third down. They go out and they play clean football. They know exactly who they are. They clearly didn't get caught up in reading their press clippings this past week, which easily could have happened. Easily could have happened. And so, yeah, that's my new rule for Vandy. I think do you remember the 07, 08, 09 South Florida teams with Matt Grothe?
Yeah, Levitt was rolling.
Yeah, that is Diego Pavia.
Ooh.
He reminds me of Matt Grothe.
Okay. All right. Yeah, those dudes could ball down there for a minute.
Yeah.
All right, let's go rapid fire, Luke. We're going to go through the games this weekend, and I want to get your thoughts, and we'll go through several. So we're going to start with the big one, Georgia at Texas. Texas is laying 3.5. Do you think Georgia can go into Austin and pull an upset?
I think they're capable because the talent level is going to be, as equitable as it's been for any opponent that Texas has faced this year. And the one thing that Texas has not had to do so far, they haven't been challenged in their pass defense. They haven't played anybody that can push the ball downfield and create one-on-ones and win one-on-one matchups. And right now, the strength of the Georgia team, I can't believe I'm saying it, is their passing game. They haven't been able to run the football very effectively. And I think against that Texas defensive front, it's going to be tough sledding again. So to me, the X factor there is how does the Texas secondary hold up versus a competent and, potentially explosive passing game for Georgia.
Okay. Bama I can't get a read now on these two teams. I know they're good, but they're not like really good. And we just discussed who's elite. So, and you mentioned it's possibly an elimination game back against the wall. So Bama at Tennessee. I thought Tennessee would have lost if Mertz isn't knocked out of the game, Luce.
I actually thought so too. And you know what? And we kind of got to say it. Florida's improved.
They have.
I know their schedule sucks and it's a daunting gauntlet, but they have improved and had their chances to win that game. And I agree with you if Mertz hadn't got hurt. But then that kid makes a hell of a throw on that touchdown.
True.
To put him in it. Listen, the biggest issue with Tennessee right now is they're getting beat up front, which is why they have not been able to go fast and why they haven't been able to create explosive plays. For 2 weeks in a row now, they've thrown for under 170 yards and can't run the football in the first half. That's very alarming to me. On the flip side, I can't get a read on this game because I think Alabama is one of those teams right now that has lost their edge. They've lost their intimidation factor, and they don't play smart football. That game the other day, they were the better team on the field,
sure,
but they played so bad, and their situational awareness, the 3rd and 10 on the touchdown late, you got to be telling anybody, if we convert this, fall down, don't score. There's 1:55 to go, and South Carolina doesn't have any timeouts. The game is over. And instead, they throw the pass, and the guy runs it in for the touchdown, which then leads to what we saw unfold and almost cost Alabama the game. And so Alabama's not playing smart football right now, but I think I don't know why Vegas has Alabama favored, but they do. I kind of agree with it. I think Alabama's going to win the game.
Okay. Tom Luginbill with ESPN on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. It's driven by your next Ford Bronco at Mack Hike Ford, I-55 North in Jackson. This could be wild. They've had some wild games over the years, and you just never know what's going to go on in Fayetteville. LSU at Arkansas. LSU laying 2.5. They're coming off the emotional victory that you and I just recapped. Arkansas's had a week off. Handicap this one.
Well, is Taylor Green healthy? That's the first question you have to ask.
No question, because he is a hell of a player.
He is a good football player, man, and they got confidence right now. They're feeling good. They have everything going for them that they lacked last year. This year they're healthy. Last year they weren't. This year they got a quarterback. Last year they didn't. I think that, and then, defensively they're playing pretty well too. I want to say I like Arkansas, but that quarterback at LSU, dude, he is a gunslinging dude, man. I'm telling you, he is a gamer, and gamers rise up, and that LSU team's got everything in front of them now. Like they're sitting there going, why not us?
Mm-hmm.
While everybody's been banging on them like crazy and downplaying them, they're sitting pretty right now.
Yeah. And Kyron Lacey is a baller. I mean,
oh yeah,
man.
Freshman running back Caden Durham's a really good player. Like they're good, man.
Yeah, and if he's healthy, I guess he's got 2 broken toes, and they didn't play much on Saturday. But if he gets healthy, Caden Durham, the little track star who's built like a powerhouse, then
he looks like Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And he's got 8 other toes. I mean, for crying out loud.
I know. All right. Okay, we got to hit this one, even though it's a 15-point spread. All right, A&M at Mississippi State. What can the Dogs do to hang in there all afternoon and make it super interesting? Stop
the run, and that's a tall order, because right now that football team with Le'Veon Moss is a handful. And then, they made the move to go back to Connor Wigman, which I completely agreed with. I thought Marcel Reed did a great job filling in and got him through some tough spots. But Connor Wigman's a player. But you've got to stop the run if you have any hope of winning that game.
Where are you this week?
I've got the mighty SMU Mustangs, the Pony Express, out west. I got to go to Stanford with ACC legend Stanford Cardinal.
Stanford has a hell of a staff. Holy moly.
That's a good staff, bad team right now.
Yeah.
They got a long way to go. They're playing like 9 true freshmen in their 2D.
I got 10 seconds. Is Kyle McCord worth a top 20 pick in the first round of the NFL draft?
He could be.
Okay.
He could be. Not there yet. He could be.
Have a great week, buddy. See you, man.
All right. See you. Bye.
Tom Luginbill with ESPN on the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by Spring Street Cigars in Starkville, Spring Street Cigars in Oxford, Tupelo, Kosciuszko, Meridian, and Hattiesburg. For a great smoking lounge and premium cigars, Spring Street Cigars.